It's great to have you on Thursday's edition of Business Incorporated, coming to you live from Lagos. I am BC Adebayo. On the show today, the Nigerian Stock Exchange admits Nigeria's first FX-denominated bonds today. And Africa's biggest mobile phone operator, MTN Group, reports a huge $108 million annual loss for the first time in 2 decades. Plus, Namibia's central bank takes control of SME Bank Limited, citing investments that can pose a risk to the bank's stability. Now, let's get the show started. And barring any last-minute change, the Nigerian Stock Exchange will host Nigeria's first FX-denominated bonds of $1 billion today. The Eurobond will be issued under the country's newly established Global Medium-Term Note Program on the floor of the exchange at 2 p.m. local time. The 15-year domestic sovereign Eurobond, priced at par and a coupon of 7.87% per annum, is the first foreign currency-denominated security to be listed and traded in the Nigerian capital market. The Director General of the Debt Management Office, Mr. Abraham Nwankwo, says the listing of the domestic sovereign Eurobond reinforces the federal government's commitment to deepen and grow the Nigerian capital market, and developing the domestic market can help bridge the infrastructure deficit constraining the nation's economic growth. Now let's hit the markets, and we'll begin here in Africa, where Egypt's stock markets rose in early trade on Thursday after the finance minister said he would propose only a gradual introduction of a stamp duty on transactions in an effort to minimize the impact on trade. The Egyptian index rose 2.36% to close at 12,282.24, while the Nigerian Stock Exchange All-Share Index is 0.07% higher at intraday at 25,201.02. At the South African Stock Exchange, it's 51,894.67, and that's 0.41% up at intraday as well, while in Kenya, it's 122.65 after losing 1.79%. And it's a mixed bag of numbers coming from the Middle East, as the Abu Dhabi index grew by 0.59% to 4,596.39, and the Dubai financial markets lost over 1% to 3,583.66. The Qatar SE is down 0.29% at 10,721.15, while the Saudi Stock Exchange is 6,999.01, and after adding a 0.41%. Moving on now, the markets in Europe hovered around the flat line on Thursday as investors took a breather after a strong rally on Wall Street and focused on earnings and political instability. Well, for more on the markets, let's bring in my colleague at the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, Olaf Krieger. Thank you, Olaf, for your time. Now, Wall Street's strong rally on Wednesday has been attributed to President Trump's congressional speech. What's been said about this speech rally today by traders in Frankfurt?
Well, it's quite remarkable because in spite of that, Donald Trump, the President of the United States, didn't say something very concrete. You can see behind me German top shares are still in positive territory, and analysts I spoke with said something like, well, he announced more than $1 trillion to kickstart the U.S. economy. That's a lot of money, and he announced also to spend a lot of money in infrastructure and things like that. And first of all, this is something what investors, of course, investors highly appreciate, because more money means more money to make some businesses on the stock market around the world. But investors are still in the dark because there's no more detail coming from Donald Trump. But nevertheless, European stock markets are rallying.
Well, Snapchat has just made a record initial public offering of some $32 billion. Is there any idea of what IPOs will be coming up within your market space in Germany and Europe?
Well, this Snapchat story is also a big story here in Frankfurt. We have to keep in mind this Snapchat IPO, this Snapchat initial public offering, is one of the biggest IPO in the history of Wall Street. Twitter was much bigger, by the way, and you know, investors here in Germany, here in Europe, are still delighted, and here's why. Here are some facts about Snapchat. Snap is incredible, strong, almost 160 million daily active users, creating 2 billion snaps every day, every single day, in 20 languages. It shows this is a strong market, and so it's a big story also here in Frankfurt.
And before I let you go, Olaf, what's the general thinking about what the markets will look like in the month of March within the Eurozone?
Well, first of all, some good news coming from the ECB. The ECB already just announced that the inflation target of 2% is reached. That's very good news. But on the other hand, we still have to face so many trouble in the Eurozone, in Spain, in Italy, and in France. So it definitely will need more support coming from the ECB. And in March, yes, well, there are so many problems to solve over there. And, you know, it's going in some areas from bad to worse. So this thing is still on the agenda here in Frankfurt and elsewhere in Europe.
Olaf, thank you very much for your time. Olaf Krieger is Channels TV, DWTV financial correspondent. Well, we're staying with the markets now, but this time in the U.S., where stock index futures point to a flat open on Thursday after markets saw their volume, the highest volume day of 2017. Stocks posted the best day of 2017 yesterday as the Trump trade rally regained momentum, buoyed by President Donald Trump's speech on Tuesday, which promised tax reform and infrastructure investment. The indexes set fresh record highs. The Dow gained more than 300 points to close above 21,000. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 broke through 2,300 and briefly rose above 2,400, but finally set